Welcome, Schaeffer Academy faculty, staff, alumni, students, graduating seniors, families, and friends. I was talking to my parents the other night about what to say in this speech. I just wasn't sure what to share. After all, class of 2015, I am one of you. I'm an 18-year-old kid who's apprehensive about having to pay his own cell phone bill and file his own taxes. I like the comforts of home. I appreciate the security of Schaeffer. The future is unknown to me, as it is to you. What advice could I possibly have to offer? Throughout our time at school, we have learned the art of persuasion. So, classmates, bear with me as I fall back on old habits. I'd like to persuade you. About what would I like to persuade you? For starters, I'd like to advise you that sugar is metabolically toxic. So, Zach, you ought to be drinking less pop. And class, as Roman once proposed to conclude a speech on healthy eating, just make a salad or something. And while I have the floor, I'd like to take the opportunity to convince a faculty member, Mr. Doherty. The Puritans, in fact, did not all wear halos. In reality, class of 2015, as we transition to the next stage of life and embark upon the greatest change of our lives thus far, what I'd like to persuade you of is the value of permanence in the midst of change. We are about to experience great change, the first of many transitions, for as time passes, nearly everything changes. What we know, who we know, where we live, what challenges we face, what victories we celebrate. These are all uncertain circumstances. With change comes uncertainty, and this can be disconcerting. Yet, as we've heard innumerable times, there are permanent things. We've heard these ideals so many times that I run the risk of this speech falling on deaf ears. But it is essential that we embrace truth, beauty, and goodness at this time of change. As we leave Schaeffer Academy, let us recollect what is true. We have learned that 3 squared equals 9. We have learned that the Protestant Reformation was set in motion by Martin Luther in 1517. We have learned that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. We have learned that the Puritans were awesome. But above all that, we have learned that life is ultimately meaningless without Christ at its core. We've examined worldviews and considered philosophies, and ultimately, we have seen truth is found in Christ alone, or as Luther wrote in the Latin, solus Christus. These truths are also beautiful, and we have learned to recognize and appreciate beauty. As we graduate, recall that in first grade, we released monarch butterflies after watching their magnificent metamorphosis in our own classrooms. And in 5th grade, we experienced the splendor of a spring day together on the annual bike trip. Remember that in 10th grade, we saw a fantastic opera in Chicago. Or rather, we saw half of it. After spending an hour trapped in an old, malfunctioning hotel elevator. Admittedly, the experience in the elevator itself was not so beautiful. But the laughter that memory has brought my classmates is grand. Finally, these grand memories are also good. Remember our excellent role models, 3 of whom are retiring this year, such as Mrs. Lee, who's devoted herself to the enrichment of Schaeffer students' knowledge and lives for 20 years. Excuse me. That's better. Recall Mr. Whately, who diligently and faithfully cared for our campus during our tenure here, and reflect on the selfless ministry of Mrs. Steer to our school's financial health. Following in a small way the great example of these 3 role models, we've seen each member of our class grow in grace and in knowledge. And through more than a decade of growing up together, we have grown to appreciate each other. In truth, I, along with the 22 people in front of me, have endured many hardships together, including school uniforms, losing sports records, and malfunctioning elevators. These events, and innumerable happy memories, have given us a long, shared history of true, beautiful, and good experiences together. Here in Rochester, we have learned from our school churches and families what is unchanging. Have faith in the God in whom the permanent things have their roots. Schaeffer Academy Class of 2015, you are prepared to go forth into the world and do great things. Do so with God as a foundation, that no success or failure is too great to change. So rejoice tonight and go forth tomorrow, equipped to speak truth, create beauty, and do good in the world. And please, by all means, drink less pop. Thank you for listening.